On the night of my career's biggest award, I wasn't even given a ticket. Isabella walked the red carpet with Archer, wearing the smile that used to be mine. The award was for a project I had bled for, 4 years of sleepless nights, skipped meals, lost birthdays, and there she was, holding his hand as if he'd written a single line of the code that revolutionized the entire sector. The photo hit the front page before I could even breathe. Power Couple of the Year, Isabella Kim and her fiancé Archer Vale debut at the Innovator Gala. Fiancé. The word punched through my chest like a slow, rusted nail. I stared at the headline, my phone trembling in my hand. They called it a debut, like I'd never existed. Like I hadn't held Isabella through every breakdown, paid her mother's hospital bills, or sacrificed my stake in the company just to keep her name untarnished. And the seat, the very seat that was supposed to have my name engraved on a golden plaque, reserved for the founder, now bore a neat white card that read, Archer Vale, co-founder. He wasn't even in the room when I built the prototype. Isabella had sworn it was just a name to keep investors happy, a figurehead. He doesn't mean anything, Roman, she had whispered once, her hand still clutching mine under the covers. He's just convenient. Now the whole world was clapping for their love story. I watched the broadcast alone from the back of a coffee shop across the street from the venue. The screen flickered with confetti and camera flashes as Isabella smiled into Archer's kiss. The same lips that once told me, I'd never trade you for the world. The crowd laughed as he cracked jokes on stage about how the idea had come to them one sleepless night in their shared apartment. Our apartment, my sleepless nights. I didn't even realize Scarlett had entered the shop until her voice cut gently through the static in my chest. She told me you'd be there, she said softly, sliding into the seat across from me, her eyes not needing to ask how I was doing. I stared blankly at the foam in my untouched cup. I would have left earlier, she added, voice tight, but I didn't want you to be alone when you saw it. I couldn't reply. I couldn't move. I just kept staring at the image on the screen. Isabella with Archer's arm around her waist, their silhouettes under the award's spotlight. Then the message came in. From Isabella. Roman, I hope you'll understand. Archer deserves this moment. Please don't make a scene. A second message followed, like salt on an open wound. And please stop texting Claire. She's starting to call Archer Dad now. It's confusing her. That was the moment something inside me stopped breathing. They hadn't just taken the award, they'd taken my family, my name, my seat. I stood up, quietly. The screen was still shining, the world still spinning. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to rage, I just needed to leave, erase myself, let them clap, let them pose, let them believe they'd won, because I wasn't going to ask for anything back, I was going to build something better, without them. Isabella and I weren't supposed to fall in love. Ours was a partnership of necessity, 2 departments merged by a funding deal, 2 strangers bound by the same office and the same impossible deadlines. She had walked in with confidence in her heels and fire in her tone. I was the quiet lead developer, still running on caffeine and code. We weren't compatible by anyone's standards. But she smiled at my whiteboard equations, called me brilliant before the investors ever did, and learned how to say debug, like a lullaby. We shared our first meal sitting on the cold floor of an empty studio apartment. The lights hadn't even been installed yet. I had brought instant noodles, 2 pairs of chopsticks, and a candle from the clearance bin because the electricity hadn't been turned on. Isabella laughed at the absurdity of it all, but when the wax began to melt and drip, she leaned closer and whispered, "This feels like a beginning." And somehow, it was. We worked side by side in silence for weeks, her managing strategy decks and investor relations, me buried in firmware and back-end frameworks. She started bringing me coffee without asking. I started saving the last bite of my lunch for her without realizing. By the 3rd month, I had memorized the scent of her hair when she leaned over my shoulder to check an interface. We weren't romantic, not yet, but it was there, quietly blooming between tired glances and shared cab rides. The first time she got sick, I stayed up all night outside her apartment with a thermos full of ginger broth. She had told me she could handle it, that she just needed rest. But I couldn't rest knowing she was burning with fever alone. At dawn, she opened the door and blinked in surprise at the sight of me on the hallway floor, blanket over my lap, thermos in hand, laptop open and glowing with work. "You're insane," she whispered hoarsely. "I'm productive," I answered, lifting the thermos. And this will help more than your pride. She drank it. Every drop. After that, things changed. She started calling me my Roman when talking to clients. She bought me a leather laptop case with my initials engraved. I once told her offhandedly that my father used to grow gardenias. A week later, a small white gardenia plant appeared on my desk with a card. Let something grow again. We got married quietly, no rings, no guests, no spectacle, just a courthouse, 2 signatures, and hands that refused to let go. The company wasn't stable yet, and we both agreed that love didn't need an audience. I stitched her a gift with my own hands the night before our wedding. A small pillow embroidered with our initials, terribly crooked, terribly uneven. She laughed when she saw it, but kissed the corner and said, "It's perfect, because it's you." The early days were golden, literally. The tiny apartment flooded with sunset light every evening. We had no furniture except 2 beanbags and a foldable table, but it felt like everything. We took turns cooking. Well, I tried. Isabella once nearly cried from laughter watching me burn spaghetti. "You make artificial intelligence but can't boil water," she teased, chasing me around the kitchen with a wooden spoon. At night, we'd sit on the floor and map out our dreams on napkins. IPO plans, office spaces, children's names. She wanted to name our future daughter Claire, said it sounded soft and strong. I had no family left. My father had passed. My mother. I didn't talk about her much. But Isabella filled that gap so easily, so seamlessly, I never questioned it. Scarlett came into the picture during our 2nd year. She was a visiting researcher assigned to assist our team during the launch of our health tech module. Soft-spoken, always precise. She never made small talk unless she meant it. She wore navy blue glasses and carried her data sheets in a cloth folder stitched with sakura petals. She rarely spoke unless asked, but when she did, people listened. She corrected a major algorithm flaw in our neural feedback system in her first week, something even I had overlooked. I thanked her. She just shook her head. It was already perfect, I just helped it breathe. She watched Isabella and me from the sidelines, always politely distant. She never intruded, but her eyes saw everything. When Isabella forgot to eat, it was Scarlett who slid a protein bar across the table. When I stayed up too long, she placed a bottle of eye drops quietly by my keyboard. Isabella used to say Scarlett had a monk's soul, unshakable. I used to laugh, but there were times when I found myself leaning just a little closer to Scarlett's calm when Isabella's chaos began to shift from passionate to punishing. Still, I stayed loyal, devoted, married. Isabella and I celebrated our 4th anniversary on a hospital bed. She had suffered a mild fracture from overwork, and I had insisted on keeping her company overnight. We watched bad TV dramas and ate vending machine snacks, pretending it was a luxury suite. I gave her a new ring. She didn't give me anything, but she smiled. That used to be enough. There were signs, of course, missed calls, long meetings. Archer's name resurfacing in company threads. I asked once, "Are you still in contact with him?" "Don't be insecure," she answered, not looking up from her screen. "Archer's just a name on paper, a relic. You're the one I married." I nodded, trusted, stayed quiet, because Roman doesn't complain, Roman carries. Then Claire was born, everything changed. At first, I thought it was the usual new parent chaos, the sleepless nights, the cold meals, the arguments over nothing, but slowly, Isabella began to shift, her eyes became harder, her tone clipped. She began to say things like, "You don't understand business like Archer does," or, "Maybe, you should step back and focus on Claire." She stopped introducing me in meetings. She asked Scarlett to sit beside her during press briefings, not me. I held Claire every night, sang to her until she fell asleep, stitched her a tiny stuffed bear with a crooked smile to match the pillow I'd once made Isabella. The bear went missing a week later. "Maybe it got thrown out," Isabella said casually. "It wasn't that well made, Roman, let's be honest." I didn't speak. I just kept working. And when I kissed Isabella goodnight, her eyes didn't close anymore. The house that once smelled of gardenia and burnt spaghetti had grown cold. Not quiet, cold. The warmth of failed recipes, napkin dreams and late-night murmurs had been replaced by the silence of omission, the kind that doesn't come from peace, but exile. It started subtly. Isabella changed the passcode on the guest wing without telling me. Said it was for security, since Archer would be using it during his consultant residency. Consultant, that's what she called him. It's temporary, she had said. He's only here to help us scale during the merger. But his luggage had more permanence than that. It sat by the staircase for days, designer cases lined like they belonged there. His cologne filled the hallway even when he wasn't around. At the office, Archer began appearing in meetings he had no title for. He'd correct my projections with a smirk. You always go too soft, Roman. You optimize for ethics, not profits. Isabella didn't defend me. She nodded, agreed. Maybe it's time we balanced vision with realism. The room full of our team, had nodded. Scarlett alone kept her eyes on the slide deck, hands folded, silent. It wasn't just Archer's presence, it was the rewriting of memory. Our launch event, a milestone I'd spent 6 months coding to perfection, was rebranded as Archer's pivot model. He stood beside Isabella under the camera lights, his arm resting lightly against hers. I stood off to the side, holding the original prototype in my hand, entirely cut from the speech. That night, I didn't return home. I sat at Scarlett's lab station until 2 a.m., watching error logs run in loops I knew by heart. You should go home, she said finally. Where's that now? I asked. She didn't answer, just handed me her thermos, ginger broth again. Claire began calling him Uncle Arch, and then just Arch. It cut deeper than anything else. I used to be her safe space. She used to run to me when she couldn't sleep, curl into my chest and fall asleep to the rhythm of my heartbeat. One evening, I came home early. Claire was on the couch, watching cartoons with Archer, her tiny legs crossed over his. He was feeding her grapes one by one. She saw me, blinked, then buried her face into his chest. Hey Pumpkin, I said, approaching. You want to help me water the gardenia? She hesitated. Looked up at Archer. He smiled. Why don't you go with your dad for a bit, champ? She shook her head. I want to stay with you. I turned to Isabella, standing in the hallway. She's tired, she said, arms crossed. Don't make this about you. I'm not, I answered quietly. Then stop acting so possessive. Her voice was sharper now. You don't own her. You're not the only man in her life, Roman. I stood still. Claire giggled as Archer whispered something in her ear. That night, I found my old coding hoodie in the laundry bin, torn. I was cleaning out space, Isabella said. It was full of holes anyway. I wore that the night you signed your first investor, I said. She shrugged. So? The board meeting that week was worse. I proposed a recalibration strategy to reduce the AI's false positives. Archer countered it with a flashier, more aggressive monetization model. Isabella backed him again. It's time we stopped playing small, she said, not even looking at me. This compromises the very system we built, I insisted. No, Archer said coolly, it refines it. I looked around the table. No one met my eyes. Afterward, as we left the room, Isabella stopped me. Can I be honest? She asked. Always. You're being petty lately, defensive. It's not a good look. My chest tightened. I'm watching the things I built being handed over, I said. To someone more capable, she answered. I stared at her. You don't mean that. She didn't blink. Why can't you be more like him? The words didn't echo, they landed hard, final. That night, I didn't argue. I started packing, quietly, one drawer at a time. My journals, the stitched pillow, the broken prototype I never threw away, Claire's first drawing of our family, the one where I had drawn the smiley face over Archer's name, because back then, we still laughed about him. Now, his name was everywhere, on press releases, on Claire's lips, on Isabella's phone. Scarlett noticed. She stopped me in the hallway the next day. You're disappearing, she said. I know. You're letting them erase you. I smiled faintly. They're not erasing me, I'm archiving myself before they can. She placed something in my hand, a stitched square, white thread, our company's logo. But you built it, she said. I nodded. And when it breaks, I whispered. Scarlett looked away. They'll look for you, but by then, they won't deserve you. Isabella didn't notice the drawers were emptying, or maybe she did and didn't care. She was too busy filming promotional videos with Archer, laughing in takes that used to be ours. Too busy introducing him to investors as the co-visionary. One night, I overheard her on the balcony. Roman, he's brilliant, but he's slow, too cautious. Archer understands momentum. I stepped back before she saw me. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat by the window, gardenia on my lap, watching the house lose its color. The silence in the house wasn't new, but tonight, it was thicker than usual. Roman stood in the hallway, staring at the dining table where 4 plates were laid out. Only 3 were touched. His plate was still warm, untouched, again. From the living room came soft laughter. Isabella, Claire, Archer, a new family portrait playing out while the old one stood frozen in the frame by the hallway mirror. Roman picked it up. The photo was from 3 years ago. Claire was clutching his thumb, Isabella leaning on his shoulder, eyes closed in quiet joy. Roman had taken that picture on self-timer. He remembered adjusting the settings 10 times to make sure the lighting was just soft enough, golden enough. He set it down slowly. He walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and pulled out the dinner he had made, lemon-glazed salmon, her favorite once, still warm, she hadn't even seen it. He slid it into a container, labeled it with his name, and left it in the back like all the others. His phone buzzed. Scarlett. You eat yet? He looked at the salmon, untouched. Almost. That's a no, I'm sending something. 10 minutes later, a knock. It wasn't her, just a delivery. Soup, ginger broth again, and a note. You're not invisible, not to everyone. He sat by the window that night, scrolling through old text threads with Isabella. Past the heart emojis and recipes, there were still unread messages from him, dated 2 weeks back. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong anymore. Do you remember when I stood in the rain for 3 hours while you fought with your mother? Do you remember anything I did that wasn't convenient for you? All left unread, no reply. His thumb hovered over the call button. He tapped it, voicemail. He didn't try again. That weekend, he visited the hospital. Mrs. Han, the old neighbor who had once sewn Isabella's wedding veil by hand, was in a wheelchair now. Her eyes were dim, but her words cut clean. You used to light up when you spoke of her, she said, voice rasping. Now, you look like a man still waiting to wake up. He smiled faintly. Some dreams stretch longer than others. Mrs. Han looked at him. She was a good girl. But maybe not your girl. On the way back, he passed the bookstore where he and Isabella once left anonymous notes in poetry books for each other. He walked in, the note was still there. If you find this, come find me again, I want the slow days with you. He left it untouched, some ghosts were better unawakened. At home, Archer had replaced his shelf of design journals with luxury brand lookbooks. Claire's drawings now showed 3 people. He wasn't one of them. The piano he gifted Isabella was gone. The gardenia plant was wilted. His toothbrush had vanished from the bathroom. Only one towel now hung on the rack. He got the message. Scarlett was waiting by the elevator the day he moved out. She didn't ask questions, just helped him load the last box. It wasn't heavy, just a stack of letters, a cracked picture frame, a hoodie, and the final prototype Isabella never let him present. I thought you'd cry, Scarlett said softly. I did, Roman answered, in phases no one noticed. She handed him an envelope. From me, for wherever you're going. Inside was a plane ticket, Lisbon. You always said if you ever left, you wouldn't stop halfway, so don't. He didn't hug her, she didn't expect him to. Thank you, he said. Scarlett nodded. She'll think you're still around. Roman glanced up at the apartment window, lights on, laughter faint. She's convinced I'll beg. She doesn't know you, Scarlett said. He left that night, quietly. He didn't tell Claire, didn't write a letter. He figured she'd forget slowly, like Isabella forgot the night he stayed up sewing her pitch slides when she had the flu. Like she forgot the 2 years he spent coding her name into the back end of their dream system. Easter egg. Line 14. He deleted the code. He boarded the plane with nothing but a carry-on and silence. In Lisbon, the air smelled of salt and citrus. He rented a room above a forgotten bookstore, spent his mornings fixing the place, his nights sleeping without alarms. The city didn't ask who he used to be. Scarlett emailed twice a week. She never used Isabella's name, just updated him on the prototype's performance, the AI ethics model he'd left behind. She didn't say it, but Roman knew she was defending his version in every board meeting. He responded with thanks. Never with questions. One night, he found a photo online, Isabella and Archer at a conference, smiling. She wore the silver necklace Roman gave her on their 3rd anniversary. The caption read, "Power couple behind the industry's latest disruption." He closed the tab. He didn't check again. He was rebuilding now. Quietly. Not for revenge, not for recognition, just to exist without erasure. A month later, Claire's drawing showed up in his inbox. Sent by Scarlett. It had 4 people again. The 4th was in the corner, holding a suitcase, face turned away, but Roman recognized the hoodie, the scar on the wrist, the way Claire always drew his eyebrows a little tilted, because she said they made him look like he was always listening. He stared at it for hours. He didn't reply. "Lizao," Scarlett sent another line the next day. "She's starting to remember." Roman didn't ask who. He was no longer waiting. The gala hall buzzed under cascading chandeliers, 1,000 flashes bouncing off champagne glasses and couture gowns. The banner read, "Global Future Tech, Innovation Beyond Borders." And standing beside the host, in a black tailored suit with sharp lapels and the faintest midnight blue sheen, was Roman. No one had seen him in nearly a year, but tonight, he wasn't just back. He was the keynote speaker. Isabella stood frozen near the entrance, her arm laced with archers. Her smile cracked at the corners. She whispered to him, "Did you know?" Archer's eyes narrowed. "No." The applause was thunderous. Roman stepped onto the stage, his posture composed, face unreadable. The spotlight cut a clean line across his cheekbones, the scar on his wrist barely visible beneath the cufflink. Beside him stood Scarlett, swan-like in an earth-toned satin gown, clipboard in hand, headset tucked behind her ear. But her poise was undeniable. She wasn't just assisting, she was co-hosting. Roman's voice rang out, calm and low. "I want to thank everyone who believed in silence, who believed while erased. This project, Code Restoration, was designed when I was being rewritten." A subtle murmur swept the room. In the second row, venture heads nodded. Some whispered, some turned toward Isabella. She flushed. The launch video played behind Roman, blueprints of his prototype, old footage from the lab, development cycles that had timestamps from over a year ago. All before Archer ever touched the project. It was undeniable. The crowd burst into applause again. When Roman stepped down from the stage, people flooded to him, investors, collaborators, board members. Archer tried to push forward, but someone held him back. "Scarlett." "I wouldn't," she said, smiling tightly. "You're not on the list for tonight's private panel." "I'm the director of her company," Archer hissed, nodding at Isabella. "You can't stop me." "Oh, we can," Scarlett replied sweetly. "See, the board found out last month your credentials were exaggerated. You used Roman's code, claimed it, forked it illegally, and then rewrote his name out of the internal system. That alone was enough." He laughed. "You have no proof." Scarlett tapped her tablet. "You should have deleted line 14. Archer's face paled. Roman walked past at that moment, calm as a tide, their shoulders nearly brushed. Archer opened his mouth to speak, but Roman didn't slow. He never looked at him. Isabella watched it all unfold. Her heels suddenly felt unsteady, her voice cracked. "Roman." He stopped. Only then did he turn to face her. She took a step closer, away from Archer. You did all this behind my back?" "No," Roman said softly. "I did this after you turned yours." She glanced around. Dozens of eyes were now on them. She reached for his wrist. "You disappeared. You didn't even say goodbye to Claire." "You let her stop calling me," he said, still calm. "She was just following your script." "Roman, I didn't know." "You knew. You just didn't care, not until now." Scarlett stepped forward. "He sent you emails, texts, called. You had time to replace his toothbrush, but not 5 seconds to answer him?" Isabella's mouth parted. "You don't know what we went through." Scarlett's voice sharpened, still coldly poised. "You erased him while he was bleeding. You smiled in interviews while he packed his life away. And now that he's in the light again, you remember how to say his name?" The air stilled. Roman looked at Isabella, then nodded to a staff member behind her. "Escort them out," he said. Isabella's eyes widened. "Roman?" But Scarlett cut in, stepping between them. "This is his night, not yours, and definitely not his," she added, nodding at Archer. 2 security staff approached. Archer instinctively moved to speak, but the room had already turned. He had no audience left. Isabella's voice lowered, desperate. "You still love me, I know you do. I saw the way you looked at Claire's drawing. You kept it, didn't you?" Roman finally looked at her fully, and for the first time in months, he smiled, but it wasn't warm, it was recognition. "You're right," he said, "I did love you." Past tense. Then he turned back to Scarlett, offering his arm. She took it without hesitation. They walked toward the private panel, photographers trailing behind. As they disappeared into the warm golden light of the side corridor, Isabella stood amidst a ballroom full of people who no longer clapped. And Roman, once erased, now walked a path where every spotlight followed. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and wilted flowers, a place where the walls were white but the air felt grey. Roman walked slowly down the corridor, hands tucked in his coat pockets, each step echoing softly. Scarlett was a few paces behind, her clipboard pressed against her chest, eyes scanning every corner as if ready to intercept whatever was coming. She had been like this for months now, quiet, steady, always one step ahead of the blows Isabella tried to land. Claire was in the pediatric ward for a mild pneumonia. Roman hadn't even been told. Scarlett had found out through a contact at the hospital and insisted on informing him. He came immediately, despite knowing what awaited him. Isabella stood outside Claire's room, pale and trembling, but still immaculate in a beige trench coat. When she saw Roman, her shoulders lifted with relief, as if she had been holding her breath. "She's been asking for you," she whispered. "Please, don't make her wait." Roman stopped a few feet away, his face unreadable. "Does she know I'm here?" "I didn't tell her," Isabella admitted. "I wanted to be sure you'd come." Scarlett stepped forward, her tone even but firm. "You could have told him weeks ago. He had a right to know." Isabella shot Scarlett a look. "You're not part of this." Scarlett didn't flinch. "I am now." Roman walked past both of them and into the room. Claire lay asleep, her small chest rising and falling. The ivy line glinted under the soft hospital light. A teddy bear sat at her side, a new one, perfectly stitched, clearly expensive. Roman's eyes flicked to the trash bin. At the bottom was the crooked bear he'd made years ago, its seams frayed but still intact. He bent slightly, brushing a hand through Claire's hair, her eyes fluttered open. "Dad?" His throat tightened. "I'm here." She reached for his hand, tiny fingers curling around his. "Do you still love me?" She whispered, voice hoarse. Roman sat down, drawing her gently into his arms. "More than anything," he said softly, "always." "Then why don't you come home?" she asked, tears glimmering. "Why don't you stay with me?" He pressed his forehead to hers. "Because home isn't safe for me anymore, sweetheart, and I need to build a place where, if you ever want to find me, you'll be safe too." Her lip trembled. "Will you write me letters?" "I already do," he whispered. "Every week." Scarlett stood quietly at the door, her eyes flicking from Roman to Isabella, who hovered just outside, clutching her handbag like a lifeline. When Roman stepped back out, Isabella moved to block him. "We can fix this," she said quickly. "She misses you. I miss you. My mother was wrong to push Archer into the company, wrong to push me into everything. I was weak, but I'm ready to change." Roman didn't respond. He simply stood there, the corridor light washing over his face, making his eyes look even darker. "Please," Isabella's voice cracked. "I'll make Archer leave. Roman reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. Inside were the divorce papers, already signed. He held them out, his hand steady. "I'm not here for you," he said quietly. "I'm here for Claire." Isabella stared at the envelope as if it might burn her. "You can't do this, not after everything we built." "We didn't build it," Roman said. "I did, you just took the credit." Her hands shook. "You can't just walk away." Scarlett stepped forward, her voice calm but edged with steel. "He already did, months ago, you just didn't notice." Isabella turned on her. "You've been waiting for this, haven't you? Waiting for him to leave so you could—" Scarlett's gaze sharpened. "No, I've been watching you destroy him piece by piece, and I swore if he ever stood up again, I wouldn't let you drag him back down." A commotion broke out down the corridor, reporters who had somehow slipped past security. Archer's scandal had just broken, leaked emails, forged patents, the illegal forking of Roman's code, screens lit up with headlines, cameras flashing. Archer himself was on one of the screens, trying to defend himself outside a courthouse, face pale, jaw clenched. Isabella saw it. "They're tearing him apart," she whispered. "They're going to come for me too." Scarlett's voice was cool. "They already have." Isabella's mother appeared at the far end of the corridor, flanked by 2 assistants. Her expression was pinched and furious. "You ungrateful man," she spat at Roman. "We gave you everything, we lifted you from nothing, and this is how you repay us?" Roman met her gaze, unmoved. "You lifted me into a cage, I just built my own door." "You'll regret this," she hissed. "No," he said simply, "I won't." She tried to push past Scarlett, but Scarlett moved smoothly into her path, clipboard against her chest like a shield. "You're not welcome here," she said evenly. "Leave before I call security." The older woman's eyes blazed. "Who do you think you are?" Scarlett's reply was soft but lethal. "The person standing between him and every hand that tries to hurt him." Roman didn't move, didn't speak. He simply watched as Isabella's mother sputtered, turned, and stormed off, her heels clicking angrily on the tile. Isabella took a trembling step toward him. "I loved you," she whispered. "I did." Roman reached into his other pocket and pulled out a small, crooked square of fabric, the stitched pillowcase he had made for their wedding night. The threads were frayed now, the initials faded. He held it up for her to see. "This was the last thing I ever made for you," he said. "You laughed at it, but you kept it. Do you still have it?" Her eyes filled. "No," she admitted. "It got lost during the renovation." Roman nodded slowly. "So did I." He dropped the fabric square into the trash next to the crooked bear. Isabella's knees buckled slightly. "I'll do anything," she said desperately. "Public apology, interviews, I'll tell everyone it was always you, just don't leave us like this." Roman looked at her for a long time, then at Scarlett, who had moved closer, her presence steady and unyielding. He thought of the night Scarlett had quietly left meals at his door, the emails she sent defending his code, the way she had never once asked for more than he could give. "You're not mine to save anymore," Roman said finally. "And I'm not yours to break." Isabella's tears slipped down her cheeks. "Do you still love me?" He exhaled, not in anger, but in release. "No," he said, "I don't." For a heartbeat, the corridor went silent except for the beeping monitors behind Claire's door. Then Roman turned, offering his arm to Scarlett. She took it, eyes never leaving Isabella's. Together, they walked down the hallway, their steps unhurried, their silhouettes receding under the sterile white light. Behind them, Isabella sank onto a chair, divorce papers clutched in her trembling hands, her reflection in the hospital window fractured by the streaks of rain outside. Roman didn't look back, not at the papers, not at Isabella, not at the life he had left behind. He had already built something new inside himself, and tonight, walking out of the hospital with Scarlett by his side, he felt no need to explain. The public scandal would rage on, Archer would be ruined, investors would scramble, Isabella would be questioned, humiliated, discarded by the same machine she had chosen over him. Claire would grow, and maybe one day she'd come find him, letters in hand, but Roman would no longer be a man erased. He would be a man free. The hospital had emptied with the dusk. Roman sat beside a vending machine, the soft hum filling the silence as the last of the nurses changed shift. His coat hung loosely over his shoulders, eyes watching the floor. He wasn't waiting for Isabella, not anymore. He was waiting for the ache to stop pretending it still belonged to her. Footsteps padded softly down the corridor. He didn't look up until a gentle voice broke the quiet. "Scarlett told me you'd be here," said his mother, setting down a small paper cup of tea beside him. Roman offered a tired smile. "You didn't have to come." "I know." She sat beside him, brushing invisible lint from her skirt. "But I needed to walk these halls with you, just once, without grief hanging off our backs." They walked slowly, side by side. Roman's mother didn't rush him, didn't fill the silence with platitudes. They passed the pediatric wing again, Claire's room now dark. Her fever had broken. Roman had sat with her until she slept, brushing her hair back, whispering stories from the book she once made him read 100 times. He had memorized every line. Now he kept those stories to himself. They stopped at the end of the corridor, where the glass windows stretched from floor to ceiling. Outside, the city lights blurred softly, raindrops dotting the panes. It was quiet, peaceful. "You were always the quiet one," his mother said. "Your father worried it meant you were weak, but I knew it meant you were listening." Roman gave a soft laugh. She reached into her purse and held something out, a folded note. "This came to the house. Claire wrote it, but Isabella sent it." He hesitated, then opened it. Dad, I'm sorry, I found the bear, I want to keep it now. Love, Claire. P.S. Mom says she's sorry too. She signed it. A second slip of paper fluttered from the envelope, legal stationery. At the bottom, beneath the final clause of the divorcee, settlement, was Isabella's name. The ink trailed slightly, like the pen had hesitated before finishing. Isabella M. Archer, I'm sorry. Roman folded it neatly, tucked it back into the envelope without a word. You're not going to reply? His mother asked. He shook his head. Some stories, they end better when the last page isn't written by me. They turned from the window and walked in silence. Roman's steps felt lighter now, not joyful, not yet, but freer. Back at his apartment, the air smelled of cedarwood and something gentle, rosemary maybe. Scarlett was curled up in the reading chair, one lamp on beside her, casting soft light across the room. She wore one of Roman's oversized sweaters, her hair tied up lazily, a half-finished mug of tea beside her. She looked up as he entered, not surprised, just relieved. He held up the envelope. It's over, she signed. Scarlett stood slowly, setting the book aside. Are you okay? No. Roman took off his coat, hung it up carefully. But I'm better than I was yesterday. She watched him for a long moment, then nodded. That's enough. Roman sat on the couch, and Scarlett joined him, tentative, as if expecting him to ask her to leave at any second. You've never asked for anything, he said quietly. Not once. I didn't stay because I expected something, she said. I stayed because I couldn't walk away. He turned to her. Why? Scarlett hesitated, then, with a soft breath. Because I loved you before I knew it was love, and even now, I'd rather be in the quiet near you than in the noise somewhere else. Roman didn't reply. He didn't have to. His silence wasn't rejection, it was reverence. He reached for her hand, fingers interlacing. It felt solid, like something he didn't need to question anymore. That night, she stayed, but not in the way Isabella ever had. Scarlett didn't fill the room with demands or perfume or sigh. She brought calm, she brought space, she brought silence, the good kind. Weeks passed, Roman began sleeping again, eating, laughing softly at headlines that once would have sent him spiraling. Archer Industries was in ruins, its board scrambling to salvage what little trust remained. Investors pulled out. Public apologies aired in tightly managed press releases. Isabella gave one interview, tight-lipped, carefully posed. The words were rehearsed. But the apology in her eyes couldn't be faked. She didn't mention Roman by name, she didn't need to, the world already knew. Roman never watched it, he didn't need to. He spent more time in his lab again, not obsessing, not proving anything, just building, quiet, sharp, beautiful systems. Scarlett often sat on the other side of the glass, sketching or typing, sometimes humming under her breath. Claire wrote again. Roman smiled when he read it but didn't reply. He left her words in the drawer, along with the stitched bear, the divorce papers, and the wedding photo, where he no longer recognized himself. One evening, Roman stood backstage at a quiet tech summit, nothing grand, just a clean, polished hall. His prototype project had been shortlisted for a global health initiative. Nothing flashy, but it mattered. The weight in his chest wasn't dread anymore, it was presence. Scarlett was in the front row, small notebook in her lap, pen tucked behind her ear. When their eyes met, she didn't mouth good luck or smile theatrically. She just nodded, calm and fierce and his. The host called his name. Roman stepped onto the stage. The lights washed over him, warm and white, the room waited. He began. Not with a speech about betrayal or resilience or what he lost, but with design, clean code, real solutions, the things he had once believed he needed Isabella's world to reach. He didn't, he never had. As he spoke, his voice even and low, a memory flickered. For richer, for poorer. Isabella's voice at the altar, once full of promise, now hollow in his memory. In sickness and in health. Claire's tiny voice, do you still love me? And his own silence that followed. Not as surrender, but as revenge. No screaming, no spectacle, just peace. His silence had become the loudest thing he ever gave back. And that was enough. After the talk, he stepped outside. The night air was cool, the sky a wash of navy and scattered gold. Scarlett joined him without a word, offering a thermos of tea like it was the most natural thing in the world. He took it. Their hands brushed. You know, he said softly, I might never love the way I did before. I know, Scarlett replied, but you're loving differently now, and that's better. Roman looked at her, eyes clear. Why haven't you asked me for more? Because healing isn't a debt, she whispered, and love isn't a contract. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the stitched bear. It was old, threadbare, no longer symmetrical, but it was honest. He placed it gently on the railing beside them, then turned to her. You've been with me in silence, he said, now I want you with me in sound. Scarlett didn't answer with words. She took his hand, and he didn't look back.